Hello there, my stamping friends. Susan here with Pumpkin Hill Stampers. I have another project for you in our summer celebration class featuring the Wonderful World bundle from Celebration. So I'm going to be using the Designer Series paper today and my stylish shaped dies again, and I'm going to show you a cute layout I recently learned that they refer to as a pinwheel card. We're actually not going to layer them on the way the pinwheel card is done, but we are going to use the layout in a different way. So first off, I am using these two Designer Series papers today. Okay, this is the one with the deep purple background, and then this is the one with the roses, but I'm using the flip side today. So when you start, you're going to want to do some cutting or die cutting. Like I said, I used my stylish shaped die, so I used the smallest square, okay, and so what I did was I cut out 4 of the images on the paper. Okay, I picked 4 different colors. You could use all the same colors, and you can see here on the paper I couldn't get them side by side. I had to skip because they're so tight, but that die does work really well to just get a small sampling to use. So you could do that, or these measure 1. The die itself is 1 1/4 by 1 1/4, but the actual die, when it's cut out, is closer to 1 1/8. So we're using 1 1/8 squares. So if you needed to, you could just cut these out on your paper trimmer, okay? But if you have dies that work or a punch that works, you can do that. You can also modify the size of your pinwheel a little bit, and I'll talk about that when we're putting it together. And then the other one I did was I used this background as just a complementary pattern, and I have 4 of those cut out as well. Okay, so my card base today is Rich Razzleberry. I thought that coordinated well, and I've run that through my Fern embossing folder, so the front of that is embossed. So there's one step up. Now, like I said, these are about 1 1/8 wide, right, square. So what I did was first, here I'll do it in the middle. First I just made a box out of them. Okay, I just made a box, and I said, okay, when I put those together, depending on how tightly I want them, that's about a 2 by 2. I went a little bit wider. I decided I wanted a little more space between them, so I went 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. Okay, so that's where I have my first square, 2 1/4 by 2 1/4, and we're just going to repeat that. But now, if you were using, let's say, 1 1/4 inch squares, right, that were a little bit bigger, you would lay them out and then figure out how big your base square needs to be, and then just make it that size. So if your squares are a little bigger, if you do this with a different pattern, that's how you just figure out. You just take 4, lay them out, spread them into your space, and that's how big your square is, okay? Alright, so now I have 2 of these squares. So first off, I'm going to put 1 on my center line, and I'm going to center it. Now it's 1 1/4, so on here I'm going to go, I'm sorry, it's 2 1/4. So I'm going to go 1 1/8 each side of my line. Okay, so here's my center line, and then this one, the second one, I'm going to center it on that line, so 1 point's up there and 1 point's down here. And I can use my grid to help me do my height, so that's about 1 1/2, and this is almost 2, so I want to go up a little bit. Okay, so help that figure out how to get that on a perfect kind of 8-pointed square. So now I'm just going to add a little adhesive here. I'm just going to put those 2 pieces together, and then I'm going to come back down, and like I said, I'm using that center line and my spacing on the grid paper to try to get that even. Okay, so there's the base of our pinwheel, or our 8-pointed star. Okay, so now I'm going to take these 4, even the other side is pretty if you wanted to do the pink side instead, but I'm going to use the purple. So I'm just going to add a little bit of my adhesive on the 4 squares here. Now, instead of a pinwheel for mine, mine's going to be more like maybe a quilted idea, but you'll see in just a minute. So these I'm going to put on this first base pinwheel, or square, however you want to think of it. I keep saying pinwheel because that's the pattern that I'm using, but I'm not putting it together like a pinwheel. To make it like a pinwheel, you would start with one and then you would put the one off here to go this way, but you would tuck it underneath and go all the way around alternating. I'm doing one layer and then another layer because I want to showcase those flowers. Okay, so there's my first square. Now, this next one, I'm going to put all these up on dimensionals. You won't have to, you can just adhere them straight down, but I'm going to add a little bit of pop to each of these. And you could just do this with pattern paper and alternate the papers. Doesn't really matter. So now this one, I'm lining up with the square this way. Okay, that bottom square. Isn't that nifty? So I've got one square over the other square, and there's my element for the front of my card. I thought that was pretty cool. I like the way that this paper really worked for that. Okay, so now this I'm going to put right down with my liquid adhesive because I popped all those flowers up on top, so I don't want to get it too high. Okay, so I need to put this down centered as my focal point. Alright, so I'm just going to press that down. Okay, so now I've die cut a banner with that same stylish dies set. If you have other banners, you can use them, or you could just use a long rectangle and you could use your paper snips to give yourself a little flourished edge. And I'm going to use the stamp set just for you. Sorry, the stamp just for you. Remember, I'm using Celebrating You as my sentiments for my cards. So this I'm just going to stamp in the center, and then that's going to go right here underneath. So that's pretty easy, right? Okay, then you would want to line your card because it's a dark color, and then you can have your another sentiment on the inside, or you can use it for a note, however you want to use it to put it together. Okay, so there is our card. And then for the envelope, I'm just going to add our little leaf that I've used a few times, right? It's just a simple leaf. I'm going to go ahead and do it in the rich raspberry. I'm just going to have that come in down on the corner of my card. So nice, simple. This one doesn't have any fussy cutting, right? I used the dies, and nice, simple color combination, and that new fun patterned centerpiece. So I hope you enjoyed today's project. I hope you give it some attention and fun. Remember, you could change up the size of your focal point. Just use your grid paper to figure out how big your squares will have to be. Alright guys, see you again real soon. Have some time stamping. Bye-bye.